Okay, before we turn it back over for some more fascinating information, I'm going to pass around a
I don't know, it's trash can to me.
but it's full of candy, so it's good. Inside are some Post-it notes. If there's something that you would like us to pick up over the weekend for next week, go over at Post-it note, drop it in there, I'll see what we can do. And if you'd like to contribute to the snack fund, so Jennifer and I don't have to pay for it, please feel free to put some money in the envelope. All right, that's it.
He meant to say put some money in the snack fund so Jennifer and I don't have to pay for it. Just a correction there.
All right, round two. I gotta tell you, this next section is my favorite second section this year every time. Just see if you're with me. All right. Actually, I love this part. Any thoughts, any last reviews or thoughts on our first section? Any last comments? Anything dwell on anybody? Did anybody have a now fascinating moment outside? Sometime today, I want you to think about something that you reacted and what would have happened and actually do it and go, how fascinating! And then see what you would have done as a result. All right, let's move on. This was the source of my book. It's inappropriate for me to sell my book. I'm proud of the book. It's a good book. Now, finish this sentence for me. When I'm going to talk about the escalator factors, the book's called The Escalator Effect. It's about how to bring success to your organization in 4 key substantive steps. And I know they're there for you, but try not to cheat for a minute. Play with me. Don't look at your pages. Just look at me if you would. If you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being, finish that for me. If you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to anybody, right? Another trite saying, but is that true? Credit unions, are we guilty of this? We are so guilty of this. We are treacherously guilty of this. And the treacherous part is so important to think about, because if we don't have step number 1, focus, we are going to have silos. We're going to have diffused resources. We're going to have mediocrity. Think about that. Can you be exceptional at anything if you are trying to do everything? I spoke at a conference with Doug Rao, who was the president of Trader Joe's. He built Trader Joe's. By the way, if you don't know the story, Trader Joe's is actually a cool story. They were 7-Eleven. They were exactly a convenience store. And 7-Eleven was moving into their town, I forget even where it was, and they were seeing that 7-Eleven was going to blow them out of the water. So probably none of you were old enough, but at the time, generics were very big in the 70s and I think early 80s. It was Black Label, and it would be like cereal or hamburger meat, or it would just be Black Label. So the drug route said the only way we can succeed as a business is to create relevant distinction. We'll talk about that shortly. How do we do that? 7-Eleven is going to eat our lunch. They're exactly like we are, and they do it better, and they have more cost efficiencies. So what if we created generic products that we could sell at a discount in our store? And that's how all the Trader Joe's brands started. They were just generics, and they realized, hey, people are buying this, what if we put our name on them? And now we've got something different and distinct. So Doug Rouse said, Trader Joe's owes its success to 7-Eleven because they beat us up, and we had to do something different. Who's responsible for delivering the focus in your organization? If we can agree on a focus, we can all have that powerful focus. Who's responsible for delivering that focus? You can cheat on this one. This would be the participatory part of the program, guys. I'm just letting you know. Right? I know this. Employees. Why employees? Employee engagement. That's the next step. Why is that relevant to execute on focus? They're the ones who do it. If you don't give your employees, i.e. your department's focus, will they have no focus? They'll create their own. We are purpose-driven, purpose-seeking entities, human beings and teams. We will not walk into a wall and say, I have nothing to do. So bang, we'll create a focus. If we don't have an overlying organizational focus for the team as a whole, we will have individual departments creating their own focus. That is silos, by definition. You with me? We gotta have that focus. As a result, yes? This is like self-evident, it's obvious. Who are we delivering the employee engagement? Who are the employees delivering their focus to? Members, right? So member experience. Why are these in the order they're in? It makes sense, but why does it make sense? Thank you, I appreciate it. I have a logical brain. But why does this make sense? It's true. Why don't you put member experience before employee engagement? Team has to deliver it. It may not be a direct line from happy employees to happy members. It might not be a one-to-one relationship. But I defy you to get a happy, engaged membership from disengaged, uncaring employees. Right? And how are you going to get happy, engaged employees who want to come to work or don't have to come to work? Focus. And that gets to that idea of that quest I was talking about earlier. We're here to make a difference, make a contribution, not just come to work. The key, as I mentioned with Trader Joe's, is relevant distinction. What's relevant distinction? What makes you unique in meaningful ways. It's not enough to be relevant, and it's not enough to be distinct. I have a lot of CEOs who I work with tell me, Neil, one of my frustrations is, I'm fighting for relevance. And I will push back on that. I'll say, you are not fighting for relevance. Why do I say you're not fighting for relevance? How many of you have savings products? How many of you are checking? How many of you offer multiple kinds of loans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Are those relevant products for your membership? Your problem is not relevance. Your problem is in part distinction. But how many of you are distinct? How many of you have your own colors, your own logo, your own name, your own URL, your own physical address? Those are all distinct. But are they relevant in why people do business with you? I might like your colors, but that's not going to push me over the edge. You need relevance and distinction. So when CEOs tell me I have a relevance problem, I say, no, you may have a relevance distinction problem, but you really don't have either one of those. What you really have is a focus problem. See if you can connect the dots for me. You really have a focus problem if you say you have a relevance distinction problem. Probably. Let me back up. If you are a teacher's credit union, any teachers' credit unions in the room? Which one? I'm sorry? Westera. Okay.
Started out that way.
If you're serving teachers, what's unique about teachers relative to the summer months? Hint, hint. They're not working. So if your focus is teachers, can you create relevant distinction? What could you offer for this particular group of members that is particularly unique and meaningful that might not be no one else might even care about? Just say it out. Summer savings.
Skip your auto loan in the summertime.
Yeah, skip your auto loan, skip a pay, right? If you serve police officers, can you offer something unique to police officers? Larry, help me out. What can the police officer credit union offer?
For new hires, for new recruit loans for their equipment.
For new equipment, when a cop comes on board, they got to buy equipment. So we'll give you loans for that. How relevant is that to almost everybody else's members in the room? Not. If you have focus, you can build relevant distinction because you understand this. I will argue is the missing link in virtually every credit union in America that's not single service, single bidder membership. This is maybe the most important idea I could share with the entire credit union movement. Is that I'll get ahead of myself here, but we'll get there. Mission, vision, and values. Have you heard of that before? That's the triumvirate of what we need, right? We've heard that. I mean, you're like, where's he going with this? But no, really, we hear mission, vision, values. That's what we hear all the time. Yes, that's very vital. They're all critical, but we are missing one. Target. Because if you don't have a target, you can't build relevant distinction. Push back on that. If we are trying to be everything to everyone, and I mentioned Doug Rao because he had this equation, he called it E squared equals 0. everything to everyone equals nothing. We will be nondescript. We will be mediocre. I would also argue why 6, 7, 8% has been credit unions' field positioning in the marketplace since the beginning of time, because we do not adhere to this. We try to be everything to everybody. Stop doing that. Pick a niche. Be exceptional at it. And the great irony is, if you're exceptional at a niche, and you're exceptional somewhere, you will become attractive to a wider audience than if you're mediocre everywhere. Please.
It seems like all the credit unions did have niche.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And then they all need to pursue it.
Yes, if we go community charter, we're gonna bust the door down. Right? Did that happen? Why did that not happen? Because they broke the first rule. Focus. Yes. Thank you. Yes. We used to be good at that, and we could have done better at that. We have an opportunity to do it still, and many of us still do. And I'm being harsh when I say we're mediocre. I'm just trying to make a point, right? I'm just trying to be.
Push back against that.
Please.
I get relevant distinction. I think that was a really interesting comment.
Yes.
But in the 90s when they went to charter,
Yes.
it opened doors. We would have failed if we didn't go community charter.
You had, because the focus that you had was too small.
Yeah, and they were relevant.
Mhm.
So I think sure, it's nice to have relevant distinction, but it's also nice to have a large tail.
We are not disagreeing. We're not disagreeing. Your focus has to be viable, right? If you have a field of membership, and this is not saying single sponsor credit unions will always win. Case in point, Enron. Enron Credit Union. Enron Credit Union existed. They changed their name to Star Trust. Trust Star, something like that. They're Tiger Airlines. Remember Tiger Airlines? There was a Tiger Credit Union. Tiger Airlines was bought out by FedEx, or otherwise no longer existed. They had to change, 100%. Where the opportunity is what is that new focus? And if you have a community charter, I'm suggesting you pick a focus within that community. Don't try to be everything to everybody. And maybe part of the community is you have such a tight-knit community. Montpelier, Vermont is in the news right now because of terrible flooding. You guys heard about this? Probably not, because you're so buried in what you guys are doing, which totally makes sense. But they had 97 inches of rain in the past few days. So they're completely underwater. Now their community, Montpelier, which is the capital of Vermont, has 8,000 citizens. That could be, this community could be the entire focus for a credit union. I mean, that's it, right? But who's your target? Are they big enough? Are they sustainable? Love the question and the point, because I agree with you. Your focus has to be viable, for sure. And if it's not, you have to change. If you struggle with relevant distinction, you may first have a problem with focus. I want to get to this mediocrity idea. Again, I'm being harsh. I'm being overdramatic to make a point. If we are trying to be everything to everybody, E squared equals 0, we'll be nothing to anybody, we will be mediocre, we will not be exceptional anywhere. And the point I'm trying to be is if you have focus, you can create relevant distinction and be exceptional. And if you are exceptional somewhere, you'll attract a larger audience than if you're just mediocre across the board. I'll demonstrate that later when we get to targeting. Let's talk about mediocrity for a minute. What's the problem with mediocrity? Acceptance of mediocrity. This is also a leadership thing for your team. When you are leading organizations, have you ever been in teams where the boss accepts mediocrity? What's the problem with that? I'm sorry? Everybody becomes mediocre, exactly. It sets complacency as the norm. Why should you work harder? You're not recognized. You ever heard of something called reverse favoritism? What's favoritism? Yeah, you get the plum job because you're liked by the boss or something like that. Reverse favoritism is you're competent so you get more work. My guess is you have reverse favoritism in most of your organizations. Number 2, here's the bigger problem. It demotivates your high performers. So it sets complacency, and if you accept mediocrity, your high performers will say, the heck with it, why bother? That's worse. Then finally, number 3, stagnation means falling behind. We talked about that one already. So we encourage you to climb the escalator. Create focus. Build employee engagement. Get the great member experience and build relevant distinction. That's true for any department you're in. What is our focus as a department? Can we get everybody engaged around that focus? Member experience could be other department experience, could be customer experience. This is not a credit union specific model. This is a business truism. So let's talk about focus a little bit. If focus is so important, there's 4 ingredients of focus we should focus on. Number 1, purpose. Surprise. The starting point of success is purpose. The starting point of success is purpose, right? Do you have a clear defined purpose in all of your organizations, all your departments, all your projects, all your initiatives? Are they clearly defined? I mean, written out with goals, targets, timelines, etc. Would that be helpful? Is this like a no-brainer, obvious, and yet we don't do it? Number 2, niche. For whom are we building the business? Niche is another word for target. Niche, if you want to be classy. Need. What needs are we fulfilling? Can we be everything to everybody, even if we determine our target? We can't do everything. What are we going to do really well? And then finally, execution. We got to make these things happen. Purpose, target, need, and execution. So success starts with focus. That's the first one. And focus starts with? Success starts with? Thank you very much. Focus begins with purpose. So we want to get everybody on the same team. Again, when we started this conversation this morning, I said how many of you want to have a perfectly aligned or a better aligned team. We already know from our recent conversation in the escalator model, if we don't have shared focus, we're going to get silos. Do you agree with me on that? Does that make sense? By definition, because we're going to define our own focus. So I want to demonstrate that a little bit more with what I like to call the flashlight metaphor. And the flashlight metaphor is this. I'm going to give every one of you a flashlight. Except it's not a flashlight powered by a battery. It's a flashlight powered by your engagement and your contribution. The more engaged you are, the bigger contribution you make, the brighter your beam. You with me? So think about your organization, no names please, and no one in the room. Bless you. I had a friend die that one time. He was in his neighbor's closet, but it happens. So, engagement and contribution. Sorry, stupid old joke.
He just got it.
Had to think about that for a minute, didn't you? All right. Where was I? Oh yeah, flashlights. More important than death in a closet. All right, flashlights. Bless you. Do not think of anybody in this room, but think of people in your organization. You know people in your organization that have position power, have a title, and very bright beams, right? You can also think of people that have no position power, but also have very bright beams, right? There's those stars in the organization. They're engaged, they're making big contributions, they have bright beams. You can probably also think of people who may even have position power, but don't have very bright beams. So part of our objective in leading organizations on the human side is to get bright beams. Not only bright beams in the room, but bright beams collectively. What happens if all these beams, and the top represents different departments. There's many more departments, it's just illustrative of departments. The bottom row represents layers in the organization. What happens if all their flashlights, their energy, their focus, is not aligned? Does this sound familiar? Again, this is silos, this is silo leadership, but what's the problem with this in reality? We're only worried about our own department. We're very myopic. We are very vertical. Patrick Lencioni, in 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, another good worthwhile read, suggests your most important team in your organization, and let me back up and ask you before I give you that answer. Pretend we're not in an environment where we feel like you got to get the right answer. But if I typically ask you, I have made no introductions here, and it simply said, what's the most important team in your organization? What would you say? I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. What is your most important team? Your team. What's your team? That is the answer most of us will get, right? And Sterling, what's your team? Digital banking. So he would make the argument, as most of us would, and I'm not I'm agreeing with you, that's what we would all say. I would have said the same thing until I was introduced to this many years ago. Then my most important team is, in this case, say, operations. What's wrong with that? And Patrick Linsky, only I'll finish that, says, your most important team on your organization is your horizontal team, not your vertical team. Why?
Alignment.
Alignment. Keep going. Focus, alignment, purpose, engagement, contribution. This seems so obvious, right? This is basic stuff, not easy to do, but we have to start at the conceptual level. This is what we're trying to get to, so we do it. You can see this doesn't work, right? This is just rejected, it doesn't work. What does work? This works. And it almost, this is like controversial, but it almost doesn't matter which way we're pointing if we're all pointing in the same direction. Is there only one route to success? There's multiple routes to success if we're all aligned in pursuing it. But if we're fighting each other, it won't work. So let me demonstrate this to you. So this is what we're looking for. And it's not silo leadership, which is all against each other, but instead horizontal connection. I did have an asterisk by this whole concept, by the way, about the flashlight metaphor for your reference. You're supposed to be yelling it out for everybody else, people. So let me demonstrate this for you guys in what really can be a truism at credit union. So if you were thinking about what should our focus be, one way to look at this is what should be our leadership objective. So before you look at your page, can anybody think of where should we be a leader? Where should we be the best in serving our membership? Anybody got any ideas? So for example, we could be the bargain leader. That would be the best and lowest prices. Is that a viable approach? Not with 7 branches, by the way, whoever knows. But that doesn't mean that's not a good strategy, because that could be a service leader strategy. So I'm not going to make them up. Any other things you'd want to be best at in serving your members? Service? Certainly. Technology? Could we be the technology leader? Maybe. Maybe. Be hard, I think, but for a particular niche, why not? So here are a few options. This is called, after working with, again, hundreds of credit unions, and these are all viable options. Although in all truth, I don't actually think number 1 is viable. Why would I reject bargain leader? Doesn't mean you have to, but I would. Why? What would you have to do to execute on any one of these? Let's take bargain leader. Keep looking your hand. Adam says you'd have to forego service. What else would you have to forego? What are your two biggest expenses in credit union land? People and buildings. And maybe tech is creeping up. So if you're going to be the bargain leader, you've got to have no people and no buildings, right? Which sounds like fintech or neobanks or challenger banks, right? The internet, the UCLA Anderson School of Business said the internet is the greatest profit killer ever invented by mankind. And they said that because you can deliver without humans or buildings. So that's the problem with bargain. But think about the rest of these. Think for a moment if you had to choose one. So let's go back to the flashlight metaphor. And is this not true in real life? You have a flashlight, your energy and contribution, your engagement and contribution. You can only point it in so many directions at a time. If it's a flashlight, only one. So I'm going to ask you, which of these do you think in your organization, let's pretend we're all one just for purposes of illustration, you should focus on to be most successful? If you could only pick one, because you can only, what I normally would do, and if we were in a room that didn't have these seats like this, is I would actually put all these around the room and ask you to go walk under them. It'd be a great exercise to do with your team, by the way. What would you find, before I ask you what your answer is, if we did either turn off all the lights and give you flashlights and should have the flashlights, or we put these all around the room and said go stand by them? What would we expect to see as a result of that exercise? Even in your own organization. All over the place. Is that shared aligned vision, or is that siloed leadership? That's silos, right? The 4 disciplines of execution makes the argument you can have 1, 2, or at most 3 external focuses to running our business in our current just day-to-day business. So we'd have to get this down to at most 3. There we go. How would you feel if you're amongst the group that has lots of people? Typically what we find is about 60-70% coalesce around 2 or 3 of these, and everybody else is onesie-twosies around the room. If you are among the 60 or 70% that's coalescing with everybody else, how are you feeling? You're feeling right? What's happening to the brightness of your beam? It's brightened, right? What happens if you're alone under a sign or pointing your flashlight at one of these and no one else is there? How are you feeling? Alone, and what's happening to the brightness of your beam? Right? And you start arguing with people and fighting about why you're right and start getting defensive. That may be happening in your organization. So how do we bring those people along? What can we do to engage and align our flashlights? Go to purpose, go to focus, go to the learning line. What's going on? How fascinating, we're not aligned. Help me understand. Let's talk about that. What are you actually meaning by that? I'm meaning this by that. You know what? We're actually using different words to talk about the same thing. Let's align. Let's get together. Because there's nothing more powerful than winning together. You want to get bright beams in your organization? Get people to work together. Because if we can work on a cause bigger than ourselves, our beams will be brighter. Is that not true? Right? So let me go back to this for a second. Has everybody picked one? Just for curiosity's sake, I'm curious what would win the day. How many people said bargain leader? Now that I've killed that. How about community leader? There's no wrong, everything else is a right answer. Community leader, no. 1, 2 community leaders. Let's write these down. Control, empowerment. No. Convenience leader. 1 of us. Education leader. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. 6 of us. Growth leader. Experience leader. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow, this is just totally connected. Growth leader. Now I got it. Now I got 2. Wow. Integrity leader. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can only vote once. Knowledge leader. 2. Wow. Personalization leader. 1. Prestige leader. 1. Relationship. Wow, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 78. Security leader. 1. Service leader. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What's after service? E, simplicity. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. Speed. No speed leaders? We don't have time to go into this in great length today. If you're not a speed leader or table stakes at speed leader, you're gone. Speed is now table stakes. We'll talk more about that later. That doesn't mean it has to be number 1 here, but it's got to be on your list. Value leader. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so what do we end up with? We have relationship with 78. Experience with 7. Service and value both with 6. So I had a CEO ask me recently, does this always end up the same for all credit unions? I think we have our answer. No. Is it okay that they're all dispersed in the room? Sure, why not? As long as each of you and your organizations can come to a coalescence around 1, 2, or 3 of these. If we had more time, we'd have a conversation between what does it mean to be the integrity leader? What does it mean to be the service leader? What does it mean to be the relationship leader? You know, that was my definition. I had a different word, so I'm happy to come over to you. Let's just redefine it with an agreed to connected definition. You with me on that? Would there be utility in having this conversation in your organization, in your department? Have this, it doesn't have to be this list for your department. Why are we here? What are we here to do? Can we all agree on it? In your department, on your team, in your organization, the more you can align your flashlights, the more successful you will be, because you're going to burn a hole through the wall with laser thinking that's really powerful, and everybody's bright. will in fact be brighter. So I'm just gonna make a note of those: relationship, experience, and we'll go with service. And we'll come back to that later. Comments or questions on that? Okay. I said this, I want to re-emphasize it. There's nothing more powerful than winning together. Let me emphasize it this way. Would you rather be the most valuable player on the team or not the most valuable player, but on the championship team? Most valuable player or on the championship team? Which would you rather be? Championship team, almost everybody. Why? Because there's nothing more powerful than winning together. We want to do something bigger than ourselves. So I want to talk about the power of purpose just one more time, because the starting point of all success is what? Purpose, right? Why am I making this case so much? I want to point to a study that was repeated first by Jerry Forrest and Jim Collins in Built to Last in 1994, in which they studied companies from 1926 to 1990. In that study, they looked at organizations in similar industries and saw if they were profit-seeking or purpose-driven. Are they here for a cause or calling or request, or are you just trying to make some money? Who do you think won the battle? I'm presenting this program, so come on guys, which do you think? Yeah, the people who were purpose-driven. They were dramatically more purpose-driven, but okay, that's 1926 to 1990. Harvard Business Analytics said, okay, it's a new era, let's look at this again, basically from 1990 to 2010. And what did they find? Visionary companies, those companies driven by purpose beyond making money, made 6 times more money. 6 times more money than profit-seeking organizations. Again, I think one of the reasons that we're purpose-driven. We don't leverage that purpose, we don't focus that purpose, we don't harness that purpose enough, but we are a purpose-driven movement. I think some of the missing ingredients is target. Comment?
Is that due to all the angel investors? Seeing something in those visionary companies and investing in them would drive the...
I would say it certainly couldn't have hurt maybe, but it wasn't the answer, because I'm not sure that the companies from 1926 to 1990 were really VC driven at all. So it repeated the same idea. It's just when you're driven by purpose and you're out to make a calling, I mean, come on, if somebody's trying to sell you something and you feel like they're trying to sell you something for their reasons rather than your reasons, you're more likely to buy from the guy next door, or the gal next door, or the they next door individual who's going to do it for your reasons, purpose driven, to make a contribution. So it's pretty obvious, but I just want to really drive the point home. You want to make some money, and a CFO said this to me once, and I thought it was great. Credit unions are not here to make money, right? We're not here for profit. But without making money, without some profit, he said, we're not in business to make money. But if we don't make money, we're not in business, right? So we have to make money. We have to be profitable. So I want to give you a definition of leadership that talks about the power of shared vision. There are no wrong answers. Fill in the blanks here if you would. Sustain blank toward a blank vision. Give me some answers. Sustained purpose toward a aligned vision. I love it. That's great. It's not my definition, but it's a good one. I like it. That would work. If that works for you, use it. Anybody else? Any others? Sustained what? Focus toward a what? Specific, common, shared, sure. Let me give you mine. Sustained followership toward a shared vision. And if you're wondering if followership is a word, it is now. Shared vision, this is like driving a car. And shared vision means looking out the windshield and looking to your sides and making sure people are with you. Followership means looking in the rearview mirror and making sure your team is also with you. What's a leader without followers? I don't know, right? A lone ranger? I don't know. What do you call a leader without followers? Not a leader. So you have to get sustained followership. You have to build shared vision at your organization to create that connected focus, to get employee engagement, to deliver a great member experience, and ultimately to have relevant distinction that's not going to make you mediocre, but exceptional against the competition. I just threw a lot at you in a very short period of time. Thoughts, comments, questions? Is everybody with you on the team? Are you with the leadership? And if you're not, let's have a conversation about it. How fascinating, we're not all together. What would happen if we were? That's worth taking a moment, stepping back and saying, let's do that. this field of membership has to change. We can't survive. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. You gave it to me. I got to go with it. Here's an exercise I suggest you think about doing to talk about how you can align your flashlights. I love this exercise for anybody that works in a department, even more than the boss, but it's great for both. I call it the top five exercise. And the top five exercise is this. If you got your department together and you said, what is the purpose of our department? And what are the things we must accomplish by the end of the year such that if we accomplish them, we are successful? How likely is it we would get the same answers from everybody in the department? There are some distinctions. IT in particular, this is difficult because a lot of organizations, IT have their specialty. You handle this software, you handle that. It's a little more difficult. But overall, you can have overarching themes. My experience is IT is the most difficult department to do this in. But every other department, not so much, unless you have real specialists. Is this important for the boss? Why?
See if we're on the same page.
Yeah, and what if we're not?
Then we have to work.
How fascinating. And isn't that great? That's awesome, where we've discovered we're not all aligned. That's great, people. We better change that. Why would I argue it's more important for the employee than the boss? They're doing the work. What let me change that. For ambitious employees. If you're an ambitious employee, what do you want?
Make your boss happy.
Make your boss happy, move up in the organization, have more responsibility, get a better title, get more pay, right? All those things. How likely are you to do that if your vision of what you need to do to be successful is not aligned with your boss's vision of what you need to do to be successful? I mean, this is a duh, but we don't do this. Do this. Take this back. This is, if you do nothing else from this whole program, do this. Take this back. Have this conversation with your boss and your team. Because everything we're talking about with alignment is the top five exercise, really. We're just, you can't do this with the whole organization. You can do it with a small team. So maybe to the comment about, I think someone asked a comment earlier about what if we have people that aren't on the bus or if they aren't engaged. I want to talk about the three sources of motivation. We're talking about getting people involved, getting people engaged. There's three basic sources, and this ties together this idea of focus, alignment, and the flashlights, and how powerful they can be in the real world as well. The first source of engagement is extrinsic. What's extrinsic? What's an example of an extrinsic motivator? Money, pay, compensation, benefits. I call them the engagement or the motivations of the head because they're logical. But how truly motivating are these? How truly engaged are you to get paid? If I doubled your salary tomorrow, would you be more engaged? For how long? Till the next raise? I doubt it. How about till the next week? Thank you, that was great. I deserve that. Next. What's more engaging, what's more motivating than extrinsic motivation? It's not extrinsic, it's, yes, intrinsic motivation. I call that motivation of the heart. Why is that more motivating?
Makes it feel good.
Yeah, it is more sustainable because it's speaking to the internal desires of the team. It is personalized. Personalization is hugely important. It's long-lasting. Why? I agree. Why is it more long-lasting?
It's inflation with your money, right? But not your life.
Money is money. There's no one who says, gosh, I wish I had more money when I died. But I had friends, I had family, I had people, I made a contribution, I feel good about the world because I did things or something that made a difference. There's actually one more that's even more powerful than this, and it gets to the idea of why we'd rather be the championship team rather than the most valuable player. And it is transcendent. This is not transcendentalism. This is not hooey-wooey. This is just a shared vision, purpose-driven goal that is higher than any of us, that is bigger than any of us. Because our flashlights will become more illuminated when we're working together to accomplish something with other people. I mentioned this earlier, and I keep going back to it. This is that quest. This is that calling. This is that difference we're out to make. So you get to come to work. You don't have to come to work because it speaks to you, and we're together doing something that I could not do alone. And that's incredibly exciting and powerful. Is that a place you'd want to work? How many of you, by the way, just a simple question, if you would, turn to your neighbor and tell them the purpose of your life. Go. You do not have to do that. Because how long would we be here? But let me ask you this. Actually, raise your hand if that was something you could actually do very easily and succinctly. Well, that's impressive that even 10, 20% of you could do that. That's impressive. But now raise your hands if your purpose in life has something to do with making a contribution to your fellow human beings. Raise your hand. That's about 85, 90% of us. Transcendent motivation ties into that. I want to give you an illustration of transcendent motivation. And I think this makes the point that expertise is powerful. Expertise is helpful and expertise is important. But if we don't have passion, if we're not speaking to what people care about, it's time to help them find another job. So the people you can't get on the bus, don't be mad at them, don't berate them, help them find a new home. How many times have you heard of somebody that left an organization and wound up in a better place? Like almost always, except in difficult or down economies. But almost always. Let's give them that opportunity and be supportive of them. Franklin Covey, you might not be old enough, but do you remember the books, the Franklin Covey books that was the Franklin Planner? So I was the 37th employee of the Franklin Planner company. It was called Franklin Quest at the time. And I opened the California division. I'm that old. And if you were selling planning books today, how successful would your business be? Yeah, gone. They knew this, right? They're in trouble. So they basically let go of virtually all the equivalent of their tellers. There's no point in having the stores or the tellers anymore because they don't sell the books anymore. So what they did is they gave them 3 months and said, we're going to let you go in 3 months because we simply don't have the business to support you. But what we'd like you to do is do your work for the next 3 months half-time. And the other half-time, we will help you find a job, and we'd like you to use that time here at the desk to find a job. That's a purpose-driven organization that cares about people. Right? Good for them. I don't know that we could do exactly the same thing, but we give people grace, give them the opportunity, they'll remember that. And maybe they'll realize what a great place we were and want to come back and go, you know, I didn't see the grass wasn't green. I'm sure you've seen that at your organization. So I want to talk about the power of transcendent motivation. Anybody know this guy? Any swimmers in the room? A couple of us. This is a guy by the name of Jason Lezak. Ever heard of the name Jason Lezak? It is remarkable how none of us know Jason Lezak, but nobody knows Jason Lezak. Don't feel bad. Nobody knows Jason Lezak. He's a 3-time Olympian. One of the best swimmers in the world, ever. He was just overshadowed by Michael Phelps. You've heard of Michael Phelps. So I'm going to take you back to 2008 in Beijing. And to remind you, in 2008, Michael Phelps was going for 8 gold medals. Never been done before. Mark Spitz has 7 in the 70s. He's trying to get 8. He has won the first 2. The third race is a medley. It's a 4x100 medley. That means 4 swimmers. By 100, that means 50 meters up, 50 meters back, that's 100. Second swimmer, 50-50. Third, fourth, 50-50. 4 swimmers, 100 meters. He has a pretty good team. They have bright beams on their flashlights, right? We want to get those beams as bright as possible. So we're going to ask him to try and win his third. He's going to try and win his third gold, but can he do it alone? Unless he's like on drugs, there's no way he could swim 400 meters faster than 4 different people doing that. So he's the first swimmer, and he does get them off to a lead. We're not going to watch the whole race. We don't have time for that. But I'm going to show you the last 3 laps. Laps 6, 7, and 8. The last lap of the third swimmer, and the final lap of the 4th swimmer, Jason Lezak. Think about the ideas of extrinsic motivation. And by the way, Olympic medalists in 2008, I don't know what they're now, they were paid $5,000 for a bronze, $10,000 for a silver, and $15,000 for a gold. So there's extrinsic motivation. Think about that and take a look at this.
The favorites, and they have been doing some talking. Elaine Bernard, the world record holder in the 100 free.
We can dim it a little if you're still there.
Well, but what about the Americans? We're going to smash them. That's what we came here for.
The French team has set the world record 2 weeks earlier.
It's been looked at by the Americans for extra inspiration, Rowdy, but it's going to take a lot realistically, for the United States to outtouch France?
How many times have I broken this down, Dan, over the last 2 weeks? Every time I do it, it comes out France. And, you know, the Americans are certainly capable of doing. Each have to have the perfect race to be able to beat the French.
France has taken the lead up there in lane 5 over the United States. Alain Bernard awaits as the anchor guy, and Jason Lezak is going to have to make up some ground on Alain Bernard, who stands 6 feet 5 and can absolutely fly.
Alain Bernard's a world record holder.
And, I mean, Jason Lezak has been there how many times in his career as he anchored this free relay and medley relay, but I just don't think he can do it. He's trying to ride that wave as much as possible.
Bernard is pulling away from it. Lezak, a 3-time Olympian. The world record is absolutely going to be shattered here. The United States trying to hang on a second. They should get the silver medal. Australia is in bronze territory right now, but Lezak is closing a little bit on Bernard. Can the veteran chase him down and pull up a shocker here? Well, there's no doubt that he's tightening up. Oh, it's moving to the ground. Here comes Lezak. Unbelievable. He's got it.
That's Michael Phelps. Nothing more powerful than winning together, right? So, for perspective, the world record, which was held by Alain Bernard, he was actually a faster swimmer in the 100, just single swimmer than Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps ultimately beat him, but at that point, the world record holder was Alain Bernard. He swam it in 47.8 seconds. That was the world record. In that race, Jason Lezak swam it in 47 seconds flat. He beat the world record by almost a second. It didn't count because he was in a relay, that's the bummer. Only the first swimmer's record counts in a relay. But how did he do it? Did he have extrinsic motivation?
It's gonna die.
Yeah, 10, 15 grand, but yeah, you say it, right? It's a little bit. But to the point that really that was did he have intrinsic motivation? Did he want to win? Yeah, probably had intrinsic. So this particular goal, this particular quest, tied to his internal desire. Did he have transcendent motivation? Big time. Swimming for the United States, the Olympic gold medal, the stage of the world. You bet. Now reality, let's pull this back. Can we build the same kind of level of transcendent meditation, transcendent motivation every day at our organization realistically? Probably not. We can't set the gold record every day. But can we have an underlying quest that's driving us to perform at exceptional levels every day or on an ongoing basis? Do we have that at our organizations today? It's not just the numbers, it's also the people side. And everything we're talking about here is people. You want to motivate people, partly that's the way to do it. I'm actually going to skip this. Let me just add this. You can read this. Let me just ask you this. How many would rather be managers or leaders? I'd rather be a manager than a leader. I'd rather be a leader than a manager. Why? A leader is a way of being. Manager is defined by your job, right? So be leaders, right? So if you looked up management of time, management of people, management of projects, you'd see the word control. I know it's on your page, but leadership is an entirely different word. I like to think of that word as inspire. Are you inspiring your team by being the torchbearer, by leading with focus, by leading by example? I want to share these 3 ideas. There has been an evolution in the thinking of management toward leadership, and I hope you embrace this in your organization. And one of the challenges to illuminate people's lights, to get them on board, is to not embrace the first 2, but rather the third. The first is subordination. This came from the Industrial Revolution into the 1920s, where it says, I'm the boss, I tell you what to do, you're my subordinate, you do what I say. How motivating is that? Completely unmotivating. My dad was a surgeon. In his later life as a college student, he went to work in Detroit on an assembly line. His boss told him, you will crank this bolt this way for 4 hours until break, and then you'll do it again. He lasted the first 4 hours and never went back. That was subordination. That was time and motion studies of the 20s, 30s, etc. In the 1960s, we introduced this idea of empowerment. What's empowerment? Yeah, ideally, it's giving you some voice, starting to give you some voice, some say. What's empowerment in your credit union? Let me tell you what it typically is and what we observe, and tell me if I'm wrong. Member has had a problem caused by the credit union or a fee, so you're empowered to reverse the fee. Or if there's a real problem, you can either give them Starbucks tickets or movie tickets. You're empowered. Is that true at all? In your organization? I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be crass, but this is what empowerment is tended to look like. Empowerment is typically playing within the rules of the game. It's having some voice, but it's playing within the rules of the game. What is better than playing within the rules of the game? Creating the game. We do employee studies all over the country. Who do you think are the people that are most engaged in most organizations hierarchically? On ENPS scores, Employee Net Promoter Scores, who has the highest ratings in the organization? Every time. Senior team. Why? Authorship. You want to give your team engagement? Give them authorship. Go back to the governance purview model we started with. Who has the most authorship? The ones at the top, conceptual thinking. But does that mean people in the middle or people at the bottom cannot have authorship? Remember the top of the model. This is relevant. I'm repeating it because it's probably something you might want to know. The conceptual thinking is identifying the issues to address. That takes some authorship. Strategic thinking is what? Not identifying the issues to address, but addressing the identified issues. Can there be authorship in how to do that? Can you give someone authorship and, all right, here's the goals, here's the itinerary, we got to get to Pittsburgh, now how do we get there? We can take a train, we can take a flight, maybe fastest isn't the best, maybe there's other things we can do. Yes, you can give authorship at every level. At the tactical level, tellers, we want to make sure that we have always and nevers. Ever done this in your organization? Always and nevers. Always are things we always do, nevers are things we don't ever want to do in our member experience. What are those always and nevers? Could even the quote-unquote lowest level folks in your organization have authorship in helping to create those? 100%. You want to get engagement? Give them authorship. Does this make sense? Because you're creating the game. It's like the difference between the chicken and the egg, or the ham and the egg in a morning breakfast. The chicken is compliant, but the pig is committed, right? Think about it. It's compliance versus commitment. We don't want them compliant, we want them committed. Give them authorship, give them that opportunity. So the very last thing I want to do before we get a break in the next section is introduce, I've given you a couple models, I'm going to introduce the most powerful model that I'm actually building the next book on, that's going to build like your strategic plan for your department, your team, your company, your credit union. And what we're talking about, and the title of this program is Building the Foundation, right? So let's build the foundation, and this is building a foundation for your home or your organization. And which of these would you want to build on if you're building your foundation? This is a difficult question, I know, but I want you to think about it. The one on the left. Why the one on the left? I mean, it's idiotic to say this, but saying it out loud kind of reminds us to think about it. Why the one on the left? Why is it sturdy?
Got a good foundation.
I'm sorry?
Got a good foundation.
Good foundation. What makes it a good foundation? Solid. Multiple supports, multiple columns. If one of them gets dinged or issued, you still have the other ones holding you up, right? There's multiple supports. I literally did this with a credit union in Maine, and they said the one on the right. I said, why the one on the right? It says that's what most of our houses are built on. Serious, true answer. Yes, the one on the left. Would you agree with this statement? So we better build a strong foundation. I'm now going to give you the tools to build that strong foundation in the model. Get your comments, and we'll take a break. So here's the model. I call these the 5 pillars of strategic planning. If you heard me earlier, I would actually call these the 5 pillars of conceptual planning, but nobody knows what the heck conceptual planning is. We're going to call it strategic planning. 5 pillars of strategic planning. Remember that poem I told you? 1902, Elephant Story, Rudyard Kipling. I had 6 serving men, they taught me all I knew. Their names were what and why and when and how and where and who. Not when, because it's always time to be doing this, or living to it, or executing on it, and holding yourself accountable to it. Number 1 is, why are we here? What's our reason for being? What is this in, what we typically call this is not purpose, but what do we typically call this? I'm sorry? Actually, where we're going. It's before vision. Mission. This is typically our mission, right? It's our mission. You can call it mission, you can call it your performance, your purpose statement. I don't care. Just define why you're here. We're going to talk about ways to do that in our next coming up session. Number 2 is who we're here to serve. Again, I don't think you're gonna see this in most other presentations of foundational strategy. And this is, I believe, the missing link. This will become clear in a second. Who are we here to serve? If we can't be everything to everybody, that's a given no. We know this. So we better figure out who we're here to serve and be great at it. In fact, let me demonstrate that for a second, just for an instant. Do any of you have members who want to get into USAA, even if you're not military related?
She did text me, I didn't realize.
You know, they invented mobile banking, or at least one of the very early players. Why? Because the center of their bullseye of who they serve, and they have a multiple tiers, is active military, deployed military. They are not likely to get a branch in Tehran, right? So wherever they are. So we better come up with a way to reach them. That's how you build relevant distinction from focus. If we have members who are remote all over the world, then we better come up with a way to give them access. Since that's who their focus was, they developed exceptional mobile banking. I'm not sort of so defining or exceptional today, but in their day when they started, they were. Now, is that relevant to anybody outside of their focus? Yeah. Because everybody wants to have more access. So by building for a focus and becoming exceptional with a target, you actually can grow your appeal to a wider audience because you're exceptional at something. You with me? So I'm not talking about excluding anybody. We'll talk about it more in targeting. I'm talking about elevating and living to your focus. Number 3 is the contributions you make to live to your target to meet your purpose. What are we going to do? The what we do. That's why it's what. The how is your values. How will we work together to make all the pillars come to life? These are all essential ingredients. Every one is necessary. And then finally, to the point of vision, it's where we're going. What is the quest we're on? What's the destination? What's the impact we're here to make, such that if we make it, the world is better? That's why I want to come to work every day, to make the world better. How are we going to do that? I don't want to come to work to sell somebody something. I want to make the world better. I want to help people make it a better life. So, do you think your vision would be impacted by your reason for being? Do you think your why would impact your quest, what you ultimately want to accomplish? Sure. Do you think your target would impact the quest you're on? We don't want to make a generic difference. We want to make a difference for a group. So since we want to make a difference for a defined target, that's going to help clarify our vision. So when people say, so this is why I'm going to leave you with this thought. Mission, vision, and values is great, but it is not enough. It is missing target, because your vision will be, by definition, unfocused if you don't have a target you're shooting to make that vision for. Make sense? Simple, basic stuff, but that's missing in all the stuff out there. One of the missions I'm on is to get people to think about this. So you can create relevant distinction, dramatically grow, and make the credit union movement not 6, 70% of the market, but 25, 30, 50% like we should be. Thoughts, comments, or questions on this? We're going to build this for the rest of the day. Look at that, 10:30. Time for a break.
Having a break, everyone. If you did not receive your results for the simulation, please come to me.
Yes, sir. Oh, there you go. Probably related to something I'm talking about. From my folks from New York. Cool. Next day.
We're still not getting it. Erin just checked hers. I mean, I know mine aren't coming through, but I'm actually calling if I can use this.
Well,
One. So I'm asking. But hers have been coming through. For like Off your problem child, please. Well, numbers. I know, me too. I was too. I was just do you have yes, yes, but I looked away. Well, actually, oh, thank you.
Oh, we have pictures today.
That's right, we do. I know, I wanted to get this. Oh, that's right. We gotta do something today.
You just pull a study hall for your newsletter, you guys?
I got the newsletters. Someone brought it yesterday. I hadn't even thought about it.
What's that?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's probably about half.
I like it, however.
Someone asked me about this, and I'm like, honestly, I didn't know about it, but.
I know, I definitely think it was some study groups, just worst case, put it out on Slack, just like.
It's a lot easier to start like right away.
It was giving me that cannot load one or more attachments when I first started it. But it didn't this time.
Oh! It is in the spam. Should now, actually.
Do you have like
Yesterday,
5
I was
to?
looking through it. I was like, I do not need those.
Thank you. Like 5 or 5
Before the 5:30 degree.
Have someone come up with brands, check away.
As long as it's
Yeah,
critical,
yeah.
That's why you bank on the team.
Okay, I'm gonna forward it to. Did you get it? No? And it should work now. Should work now. Thank you. Can we, like, actually, I'm gonna walk outside and come back. Is Cynthia doing the internet down here? Huh?
I got Wi-Fi.
Oh, no, I'm not. No. Okay, I think that works. Either that or they go to the box. I do it very, here, let me do it. Can I do it for yours? So that it's.
Oh, I thought, okay, never mind.
Tell me how it's supposed to be said and then I'll write it like how I think.
Okay, that makes sense.
Morris.
I won't call Jeff. Oh wait, Jeff's on PTO.
Oh, that's how I would do it. She'll be like, why would they write that there? They'll, how would you do Smith? I'm just kidding. That's the nice part about being a Smith. Okay, Laura Marie Smith. I guess that's fine. They agree? Well, I don't know. I don't know why we have a hard time getting this to go in straight lines. I'll bring it to Cynthia. Laura Smith. Not. Nope. Anyone? Oh, no. Two people are in. Maybe she should be.
That's right, we need that money.
Sorry, Ian. Thanks.
outside?
It is.
He's still got his mic on.
Oh,
He's
that's
out.
I was like, seriously, I thought he was standing behind me.
I was looking.
I wasn't even looking.
Because there's no, like Matt said, at some point, if you can understand about how so much more you because they understand like
He doesn't gotta use the restroom.
Yep.
It's a lot brighter outside than down
Forgot
here.
It's
This
funny.
is gonna be an interesting conversation.
No, this is good. He's not even in here.
One of these is decaf?
Should I go, should I go ask him some
I just don't,
questions?
I don't want, I don't want him to say something. We would, right? So.
Yeah, just looking. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Oh, where'd you go now?